Just want to pop in before the episode starts here. We have a great interview with Jason Malone. We talk link building, which is something I actually spent a huge amount of time on my first few years, starting sites and running sites and all that kind of stuff. And eventually I got a little bored of it. Very effective, but you'll hear through the conversation today that it's very capital intensive, it's resource intensive from a effort standpoint. And if you have a team, it takes a huge amount of time from them too. So today we talk about how Jason got started in internet marketing in general, a little bit of his history, which is cool. I didn't know him before we chatted today, so we were able to, get to know each other a little bit better. And we had kind of some parallel paths and then diverged a little bit, which we talk about in the interview. The thing that's very interesting and is potentially most useful for you, listener, is that we go into exactly what you would need to do to run a link building campaign. So Jason runs We Outreach and highly recommend them. They have great reputation out there for getting, good backlinks. So recommend you check it out if you are looking to outsource this activity. But if you are just looking to dabble, you'll hear how someone that has several years of experience would design a campaign from start to finish. We get into some very specific details, including like warming up an email address and how to set up it's like the email server and maybe the domain and a email domain, which if it doesn't make sense, it will once we get into the conversation, but it can get very in-depth. And again, I used to do a lot of link building, but eventually I got a little bit bored of all the details. So check out We Outreach if you're looking to outsource this activity. And at the end, Jason lets us know like the right kind of client. It's not necessarily a cheap service at all. It's kind of a premium service, a white glove situation. But when you have that, which is kind of how I, back in the day, I did some link building when I had a small service. That's what I did. It was very like hands-on. The clients were treated really well. And it just wore me out for all. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this interview. Please check out We Outreach if you are interested in getting some backlinks out there. I'm an affiliate, so I would get a commission if you do sign up, which I greatly appreciate. So let's get to the show. Hey, what's going on? Welcome to The Doug Show. My name's Doug Cunnington, and today we're going to talk link building. I have Jason Malone from We Outreach, and it's a great agency. They do, we'll get into the details, but they build some links out there via outreach. And if I have the stats right, you guys have built over 10,000 links for clients over the past couple years or so. So we're going to get into some details, including Jason's history, how he got into this, SEO business model, and just generally how to build good backlinks out there. So Jason, welcome to the show. How's it going today?
Hey, Doug, all good. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So let's get an intro, and I don't know you that well. We exchanged a few emails. So I want to know a little bit about you, how you got into SEO, what you're doing now. So kind of broadly, what's your introduction?
Yeah, so I've been doing like affiliate marketing broadly and SEO for like 12 or 13 years now. And the whole thing started I guess I sort of stumbled into it. It wasn't a very planned thing at all. I just was in high school and university and decided, okay, I really don't want to go and get like a 9-to-5 job because I already hated school. And like in my last year there, I was skipping tons of classes and stuff like that. And so to go to an environment where you can't just like skip work, otherwise like you get fired or whatever, that sounded like pure misery to me. So I started off like playing poker online, which actually it can work. It's just a bit of a grind. But from there was this really good forum called the 2+2 forum, like a poker forum. And I kind of found the warrior forum from there. I don't know if you remember that one, but an old internet marketing sort of forum. And in there, just started to learn about SEO and affiliate marketing. And that was like, okay, like this is my way to avoid having to get like a normal job and kind of be trapped in a 9 to 5 type of situation. And yeah, started from there. I remember back in like 2010 or 11, like building my first Amazon sites. And that summer, like maybe summer 2012, I actually started a service building those Amazon sites for like clients. So like if someone wanted to get into Amazon stuff, like I would build them like a simple site with like 15 reviews or something like that in a certain niche and sell it for, I don't even remember, like $500 or something like that. But that plus my own small sites was like how I got started back then. And done a few other forms of affiliate marketing since then, but came back in 2016-ish, got back into SEO with my own sites. And then in 2018, through the Authority Hacker community, I eventually started We Outreach. And yeah, I realized like I was good at link building and liked link building and the processes of it and everything. And many other of like my acquaintances and friends in the Authority Hacker community were the opposite. They just liked to make content and were really good at the sites side of things, but really didn't like the link building. And I was like the opposite of that. And it was a kind of a natural fit. Someone like that I kind of know and respect in the group was talking about the struggles of link building one day. And I just kind of commented on the thread and like, hey, if you give me $1,000, like I'll build you 10 links a month and we'll see how it goes. And got my first like 2 or 3 clients within a few days doing that. And it's sort of, grown from there to now, like you said, built over 10,000 links, and it's over 5 years later. The team is like about 20 people now, and we're still really popular within the Authority Hacker community, but we've expanded outside of that as well. So it's been a journey.
Cool. Yeah, you've been doing it for a long time, and it's interesting to hear. Even in the early days, it sounded like 2010 to 2011, you identified the business model of like building the sites, a done-for-you type site, which is still a very popular business model. So what drew you to do that versus, right? Because back then, the competition wasn't as high. You could have, built a site. SEO was a little different. You could kind of spam your way to the top. And you could do it faster too, much faster now. Now it takes, a year or 2 years to get your traction. The point being, you could have earned a whole lot more money potentially with your own site versus selling, $500 to build a site. So what drew you to the agency type, client serving model?
Yeah, I think I didn't have like an appreciation of just how big the opportunity was back then. And if I had have realized the time that I was in, like a new platform with this new algorithm that's super easy to game and like the sort of spoils you can reap if you do that successfully, then I definitely would have just focused more on my own sites. And I had my own sites too at this time, but they were like much smaller and like the type of sites that make like a few $100s a month or something like that. And it wasn't super significant. And I didn't have a clear understanding of how to do better with that. And I think the thing with agencies, and it's still true with We Outreach, and also the reason why I ended up starting We Outreach, which we could talk a bit about too, if you like. But that was a much clearer way to like get a lot of cash like upfront. And there was like one summer, I remember like university ended and I was like, okay, like I want cash like now. And I was like, I saw people on the Warrior forum like posting these like ads for different services they can do. And I thought, what service can I do? Well, I know how to make these sites. And so I just started doing that, and there was a market for it. Then you start getting some positive reviews, and then like you kind of go from there. And I guess the struggle of it is it's hard to like once you establish a service or an agency, I think pretty much every agency owner, myself included, say like, oh, by this time next year, I'm going to have transitioned back to my own businesses for sure. Nobody ever seems to do it though. And I think it's because the better you get at the agency model, it's like you have more to gain from just continuing to get better at the agency rather than going back to your own stuff. And some people do make the transition back, and I'm still hopeful. I think I will eventually, not right now, but next few years. And but it's just same as every agency owner. So yeah. I think that was it. I think that's why I went down that road.
You still haven't learned your lesson,
Not yet, apparently. No. Still, need some more pain to learn that one, it seems.
Next year. Yeah. Clients are the worst, but those are my words, not Jason's. Okay. So let's, a couple other things that I noticed here. So in 2018, if I got it right, that's when you kind of got back into it and you're like, all right, we're going to do the agency thing. So in 2016, it sounds like that's when you got into the Authority Hacker, suite of courses and stuff. Great stuff over there. Those guys are brilliant. So it sounds like you were trying to get your sites go or trying to build some sites. Like, how did that go? Like, did you have any success out of the 2016 cohort there?
Yeah. So for like a period between 2014 and 2016, I had been doing like affiliate marketing with paid traffic basically, and had done okay with that, but it was a bit fickle. It was like, it depends on, with paid traffic, sometimes you do well, sometimes you just get nothing. And also you build no asset along the way. So you have nothing to sustain you through the bad times. If your campaigns stop working, then you're sort of screwed. And so that was good for those 2 years, did okay. But in 2016, that kind of wrapped up, or like me and the people I was working with decided not to work on it anymore. I was like getting too difficult and just getting more and more difficult. And so that's what prompted me to kind of go back to SEO that I had known before. And then, I right away, like even before I finished working with the other guys, I bought a site in the last few months, like a small site. I think I bought it for like 15 grand or something like that. And then like 8 months later, sold it for maybe 60-ish or something like that. So it was a nice, like small win to kind of get me back into the run of things. And then, joined the Authority Hacker course. Like we talked about earlier, I was okay at SEO when I was first doing it, like in 2010 to 2012 or whatever. But I really wanted like the best information I could get, because to like bring my skills up to like the current era that it was in. And that's how I had gotten really good at the paid traffic stuff before, was like I was in a paid community. I met a bunch of people in there and I learned like, okay, that's a really good system for getting good at something and like finding the best information and the best people that you can learn from in a certain field. So I wanted to find the best course that ideally cost like, a few $100 or a few $1,000 so I could get into a community and do the same thing again. And that's how I got into Authority Hacker. And started a few of my own sites around then. 1 or 2 of them did well. I did the classic thing where I thought, I can make it go much faster if I just build 3 sites at once instead of 1. And then, 1 of them did well, 1 did okay. And then the other was just never got anywhere. And then, sold one of those sites, at one point, and the other was still doing sort of okay. But then what prompted the change to, We Outreach was, 1, there was like this opportunity for it where it lined up that I had this skill set that fit with what people in the Authority Hacker community didn't have and what they wanted from me. And the other thing was I mismanaged my finances terribly when back like then, and ended up with a tax bill that was basically like much larger than I expected it to be, larger than I had money to pay for. And that sort of prompted me, like suddenly I didn't have time to like slowly invest in building up a site. I needed cash like now. And then that combined with the fact that, I knew people in this community who wanted a link building service and it all lined up. That's what prompted me to like transition to We Outreach. And then since then, it was the same thing. I'll do this for a year, sort out these problems. Then, also I can use this cash flow to get back into my own sites. And I met a guy in a mastermind, I remember around that time, and he was just laughing at me, shaking his head, saying like, we're going to talk again in 2-3 years and you're going to be all in on the agency stuff. And sure enough, he was right. Because the further along you get, it's like the more cost you have to like re-transition back to the other stuff. So that's what prompted the transition.
Got it. Okay. There's a couple threads I want to follow and then we'll get onto the link building stuff. Sure. Number 1, a little bit earlier, I think it was like 2015 to 2016, I got laid off. And I basically had a similar business, right? It was very profitable. It was going great. I was getting new clients. Like, just like you, I was like, oh, I have a pretty good system, but I realized that I didn't like working with clients that much. And when I played it out, it's good for us to talk. When I played it out in my head, I was like, if this is successful, I'm going to have 20 people, a couple middle managers, and then I'm going to have to keep the pipeline full, all the headaches that you think about, right?
Yep.
So I was like, I don't want to do that. So I pulled the plug after about 6 months or so. So I got out of there before it became successful, like too successful. So it's interesting to hear. And I mean, it's just, every business model has its pros and cons and the risks, the competition, all that kind of stuff. So there's no free ride, but interesting to hear like the path that I did not take. It turns out just like I thought it would have. No question there, but do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think you hit on it right, that every business model does have pros and cons. And at first, because I'm also not the type who is like really, really good at working with clients. Like it's not my natural sort of skill set. So the first 2 years that took a lot of effort and energy for me. But now, like one thing I am really good at is outsourcing. And so now I have like an operations manager. We have like an account executive. We have like a client manager, account manager. And so like they are like the system that surrounds, they're the system that support the people that we work with, the clients that we work with. And so I'm kind of insulated from that work that I didn't like that much anymore. And once I got over that hurdle, that's when I actually started to like the business a lot more, because now this part that was difficult for me is taken care of by someone who's really, really good at that, who's much better than me at that type of stuff. And I can just think of it like as a business. So I can do what I like to do, which is like think about the strategy and the high level of the business and stuff like that. And then you also realize like, oh, and I have this great cash flow model as well. And that's a really good part of an agency. And so I think trying to set it up in a way where you get the good parts and like mitigate the bad parts. You can't remove them. Obviously, there's no free ride, like you said, but I think you can learn what you're good at and sort of fit yourself into a business in a way that makes the most sense for you. So that's what I've done. It's not perfect, but it's going reasonably so far, I would say.
Perfect. The other part is the tax bill. So can you quickly share the story and how people can avoid that sort of an issue?
Yeah. So what happened there was, like I said, I was doing pretty well with the affiliate marketing with paid traffic. And I had like no appreciation of how to handle all of this like new money that was coming in, because it happened so quickly, which was good for me, obviously, to have like an early success, but I was so not prepared for it. And like, I didn't even have a company registered in the first like year or two. And all this money was coming in, just like personal earnings for me. I didn't even know how to account for it at first. Like, I had nothing, no tax number or anything, just all this money coming into my bank account. And then so in my head, it was like, oh, if I make $1,000, then like I made $1,000 today. So it seems like I can afford like $400 for that thing that I want. That seems reasonable. I still have 600 left over. And then a year later, you talk to an accountant and they go back through the numbers and they're like, actually, that's not how this works. And so that's how I got myself into a situation with a tax bill. One part of that, so for other people who to help others avoid that, I think one part of it was good, which is there's no point trying to like optimize your taxes before you have income. So I think some people get too caught up in that, like wanting to have a perfect system before they actually have something that is generating cash coming into their bank account. So I think that in that sense, my approach was good to like focus on figuring that out first. But people definitely need to be more aware than I was of like, okay, like once you see cash coming in and you see you have a system or some sort of process that's like producing this cash, then it's definitely a good time to take a pause for a sec and figure out like, okay, how do I account for this? And also think about it, not in terms of like, actually probably from the very start, it would be a good idea to not think about like, oh, I made $1,000 from this client, but actually to think about, okay, I made $1,000 and let me figure out the tax rate and stuff. So, okay, actually after all the taxes, that's like $500. That is the real value of this. And having some sort of simple mental model like that could be good. And just being conservative at the start. Not, I made $1,000 so I can spend half of it on whatever bullshit I want. Just like setting it aside and like making sure that you're liquid. Cause looking back on it now, like it's really easy to get knocked out. Even if you have some good successes early on, if you get a tax bill you can't pay, like the government don't care. They'll empty your bank account and good luck to you. See you later. And then like you're bankrupt or in debt or whatever. And then that undermines all your other projects or businesses in the future. So yeah.
Consult your tax professionals or whatever. But yeah, it's like when whenever athletes or something, they somehow go bankrupt. It's because, they have whatever, like a $2 million contract. They spend like $2 million, but they have managers, they have taxes, they have all this other stuff. So they're in the hole like by $1 million or something like that. So yeah, if you save like, again, not tax advice or anything like that, just entertainment. But if you sock aside like 30 to 40%, like that'll probably cover what you need. But yeah, if you sell a big site, all of a sudden you have whatever, a few $100,000 in the bank, but you have to pay a good chunk of it for taxes. So, okay.
Yep.
Cool. One last thing. What did you study in university? What was your major? What were you going for?
I did like business and management, but I actually dropped out 1 year before getting the degree because I thought, fuck this. So I got into like affiliate marketing instead.
Okay, cool. And then you never had like a corporate kind of job or whatever? You've always been self-employed?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Awesome. Let's start transitioning into link building. So you have this skill set. You realize that other people didn't like link building. What is it about link building that you do enjoy and what makes you good at it?
So I think I was very willing to set up processes and use tools like Mailshake and stuff to actually like interact with the world outside of your own website. And I think that was the biggest barrier that I noticed in other website owners. They didn't want to do that. Like they were very happy to set up the site and make it look good, make sure the content was good. But they were like, many people were intimidated by actually like putting themselves out there and like emailing real people and showing them their site, and also trying to be like assertive enough to actually, because you can't like be too passive when you email someone and ask for a link, because it's not going to work. And like the whole thing is a numbers game. So you need to be like assertive and drive towards the end goal that you want, which is like obviously to land a link for your website. And I think I felt like I had none of those mental barriers, and I just thought of the whole thing as just like a big numbers game. And so it was very like intuitive to me that like, okay, if I want one link, like the first thing I need to do is find like 200 prospects. And then of those, once I go and find contact information, I have like however many of those left. Then I email them, I get like however many responses. And then out of all of that big numbers game, the links come out at the end. And so that was like simple and easy for me to set up. And then, just filling out the different parts, then like outsourcing the different parts of the process, was like I'm not sure if I'm good at outsourcing or if I'm just really lazy and I'm more willing to trust people to actually get the job done. But it turns out that is actually what all of the management books say, is like give people autonomy and accountability to take care of their tasks. And which, when I learned that, I was naturally kind of lazy and like not good at staying on top of the details, good at getting something started, but not at like maintaining it and taking care of the details. So when I learned that like, oh, okay, actually the very best strategy here is to give it to someone else, I was like, perfect. Like it fits right in. So I think I'm good at doing that. And that I think is what came together to make like an effective link building process.
Okay, cool. So let's break it down. Let's assume, that the listener out there is interested in link building. They want to like do a campaign, maybe like what you were doing in the early days when you were doing everything. So can you take us through the process from, finding good prospects, good websites to reach out to, how you actually contact them, what you email them with, just a general approach. It's a big process, so feel free to get started with a couple steps. You can pause, catch your breath. I'll ask some follow-up questions. We can kind of go back and forth, but let's start at the very beginning and have some links spit out on the other side. So someone wants to get started. Let's say they have a website, kind of a general, affiliate marketing with some ads, some informational, some reviews. And let's say it's a photography website. They focus on cameras, video gear, stuff like that.
All right, sure. So any link building campaign is made up of like three parts, I always think. One is the target page, or like you could just say the target website. That's important because it influences the second part, obviously, which is your choice of prospects, the other like types of websites and industries that you're going to outreach to. And then the third part is your template, or like your messaging for those prospects. And all of those, like they all kind of depend on each other, and it's very interconnected. So those are the three kind of pillars of an outreach campaign in my mind. And I think, so for a new website, so I mentioned that one of these is like the target page or target website. I think for a new website, and even for like until you have like 100 to 200 good solid links, I think it makes the most sense to not try and build links to specific pages, especially like commercially focused pages, but just build the best links you can to any page on your website to grow the overall authority. So in terms of like that pillar of an outreach campaign, that's how I would think about that for getting started. It's just, doesn't matter, whatever page you have that is going to let you build the very best links. You should focus on that, and as many of those links as you can. And that will typically be like your informational pages, like guides or anything like that. So for a photography website, like it might be, guides about how to take photos in certain types of lighting or with different types of lenses, or what lens to use. And I don't know anything about photography, but that seems like roughly on point. And probably the reason is obvious, but like, so when you email another website, you have like something of value to show them, because they're much more likely, if you have an awesome guide about shooting or taking photos in a certain type of lighting, they're much more likely to be willing to link to that because they see it as like valuable for their readers and so on. So yeah, that's the first thing. And then second thing is to build your prospect list. There's two ways that I like to do this. One is to make a big list of your competitors and make a list of everyone who links to them. So other photography websites, throw them into Ahrefs, export the backlink profiles, and that is like the start of like your raw prospect list. And this is also with building the prospect list, you start with a raw list like this, so you can pre-filter it later, and we can talk about that a bit later. And then, so exporting competitors' link profiles, and then also scraping Google is another really good one. So like you make a list of keywords that are related to your space. So informational keywords are best for this also. So again, like keywords about how to take photos in different types of lighting and like photography rules and whatever. And then scrape Google for those. And then, it's just another way to find like what you're looking for here, which is websites that are related to your website, that like a link from them is going to be a relevant link for your website. And through these two ways, like if you kind of keep focusing on them and keep expanding them, you can, for almost any website, any industry, you can find like some thousands of websites. And if it's something like the health or finance space, you can find like tens or hundreds of thousands of prospects just by doing this. And that's like a good raw list. And then the last part is you need a compelling message to send to these prospects. The last step then would be to like filter this prospect list a little bit more. I can talk about how we would do that. And then, writing the message, I could give a few tips for that too. But one most important thing about the message is you don't want it to appear like a bulk message. You can write an individual message for every single person. It's not the best approach. Better to just come up with a type of message that is like relevant enough to like the segment of websites that you're aiming for, that when they read it, it doesn't stand out to them as being like a bulk email. Like it seems like, oh, you wrote this just for me type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I think those are some general good rules of thumb.
Okay, perfect. For the prospect list, you mentioned, you should be able to find thousands of potential websites that could link to your site. Is there like a minimum that you would recommend? So assume someone's pretty novice and they're like, I don't know if I can get that many. What's like the minimum number in a prospect list before you can start reaching out?
For one campaign, like I think if you had 200 or 300 fairly relevant prospects, that would be a good place to start. With the raw list, you got to keep in mind that after you filter it more, it's going to be cut down by half or something like that. Then you also got to find contact information. You won't be able to do that for everyone. That will cut it down a bit more. So all said, like after you go through some of those steps, you could start a campaign with 200 or 300 prospects, I think. But link building is a numbers game, and you want to aim to build, even for a website in a low competition niche, I would want to aim for like a good foundation of 50 to 100 like really, really good links, and ideally like 100 plus links as a foundation. So you kind of need to think about it in that way as well. So yeah, you can get started with a few hundred, but you also want to find the next few hundred after that, so you can get the next few links and keep it going. But you don't need them all at the start because you'll be limited by your email sending capacity. Like it's hard to warm up email accounts and send without ending up in the spam folder. So you're you're limited to like 50 emails a day or whatever anyway. So sure, it makes sense to kind of start small and try and be consistent.
How do you distill the list and refine it so you end up with that 200 or 300 good prospects?
So the first thing would be to like go through and visually check them. So the way I would do this is to have them in your Google Sheet after you export from wherever, and go through one by one. And like if a URL looks like relevant, then sometimes I won't even check the website fully. Like if I can see like, oh, it's awesomephotography.com and like the rest of the URL is like an article that's relevant to like whatever the angle of my campaign is, I'm like, that's fine. I'm not going to check that right now. But then if there's anything like, it could or it couldn't be relevant, then I'll like manually open the website, check it and make sure that it is actually a website that is worth contacting. Because obviously there's no point contacting a website that even if they reply to you and they're open to link building, they're not going to be a good fit anyway. So I think it makes sense to do that quickly at the start. That's the first step. You'll get rid of some amount of them by doing that. I would train a virtual assistant to do it because you can come up with like some fairly easy rules for them to follow. Like if this website has anything to do with photography, like it's a pass. If not, it's a fail. And they can just go through and do a lot of this for like quite cheaply. Then the next most important thing after that is to add some, find contact information and also add some light personalization details. One other thing before that is actually you can do an initial like bulk filtering based on like the level of the DR and the traffic of the websites. So I'd remove everything that is like above or below DR 10 and above DR like 80, something like that. And also I'd remove anything that doesn't have like at least 500 traffic, like based on the Ahrefs metric. So that will get rid of a bunch right off the bat, even before you do this manual check. Then you do your manual check. Then after that, you go through the list again and look for contact information for each of them. And so I'll talk more about finding contact information in a sec, because there's a few kind of clever steps to that. But the personalized information you want to gather, or the personalization data, is like type out the name of the website nicely, so it's with the correct capitalization and everything like that, so you can use it in your email template. The contact's name, whenever you find them, like make sure that's correctly spelled and capitalization. And sometimes it makes sense to have like a personalized section in your email template. And so this is also an opportunity then to like look at the website and find something unique about them that you want to mention at the start of your email template or something like that. I would say that's really difficult to do. And if you're not good at it, it can sometimes backfire. It ends up with like worse results than if you just have like a simple template. So it's definitely not required. But if you're kind of a good copywriter and like a good communicator by email, you can try to add some personalization like this. And yeah, so that's what you need to achieve in the last step. Do you want to hear about the contact finding step?
Yep. Let's do that.
So obviously, firstly is like tools like hunter.io, where you can just take your whole list of websites, you put them into hunter.io and hit search. And they have a database of like email addresses associated with domains, and they'll return like whatever amount of those they have. For a typical prospect list, you'll probably find like 30 or 40% of the list has email addresses from Hunter. So that's one to check. But I actually would advise not doing like just a raw or just a whole bulk check with Hunter. I think it's much better to like install the Hunter Chrome extension and go through. So you would do this as part of your personalization data step as well. Go through each website one by one and actually like, okay, the first thing, check Hunter and see if you can see an email address there. It's really easy with the Chrome extension. You just click it, the email address, if there is one, appears right there and you can see it. But then I would also click around the website, check the about page, check the contact page, everything like that. You'll often find email addresses there or whatever. Even if not, take note of the contact page, because you might, like, if you can't find any good contact information, the contact form might be your only option. So I'll usually just drop that into my Google Sheet as well, so I have a record of it for later. And all of that, I would say, is like the basics of how to do this. Then if you don't find anything quickly from there, I would then look at so there's another tool on LinkedIn called Sales Navigator, which is kind of expensive. It's like $300 or $400 a month, something like that. But they have really, really good data about people who work in different positions at various companies. And so if you go there, you find the company's LinkedIn page, and then you can see just a list of everyone who works there. You find the most appropriate person, content manager, writer, marketing manager, something like that. Whoever seems like they have the best job title to talk about, like giving you a link, that's the one to start with. But you still don't have their email address, but just like take their name. So it's like, Jason Malone, and you're looking at weoutreach.com. Put that information into an email permutator. Just Google email permutator. There's these tools, first name, last name, domain. It will give you like 10 versions of the email address, and take that and put it into like the hunter.io verification tool or Neverbounce, something like that. And like 9 of them will be invalid, and then 1 of them will be valid. Okay, sometimes none, and there's other things you can run into, but like in 70% of the time or something, you'll find a valid email address. And then you have an email address, and that email address is much more valuable than one you get from Hunter, because every spammy link builder out there is using Hunter, and these are just like jaded, like abused email addresses. But when you take the extra manual work to find one like this, that's someone who's less spammed and therefore more likely to reply to you. And so that's a powerful tip, I think. And I would take it further, like break out all your internet research skills to try and find someone, read the authors' names on the website, blog posts, Google them, try and find their personal websites. Maybe their email is there. Maybe there's a phone number there. Like really try and squeeze all the juice you can out of the prospect list by doing the things that most link builders are not willing to do. And you can get an edge by doing that. So I think that pretty much covers the contact finding part of the process.
Okay. So next is warming up the email addresses and being able to like actually do the outreach. So for people that don't know, if you you have this list of hundreds of people, if you try to email all of them the same day with like a templated email, Google and other email providers are going to throw in the spam. The mail servers are pretty good at catching this kind of stuff. So how do you effectively email these people so they actually can get the message?
So Firstly, you got to start off slowly. So if you have a brand new email account, start by sending, 10 emails a day, like on day one, or even for like the first 3 days, 10 emails per day, something like that. Then, on days 4 through 7, increase it a little bit. Let's say 20, 25 emails a day, something like that. And just kind of keep nudging it slowly. You can do that if you have like a Google Workspace account or Google Suite or whatever they're calling it these days. You can pretty safely do that up to like 100 to 150 emails a day, something like that. But yeah, do it slowly and gradually. And the more history you build up with Google through this account, the more stable it becomes and the more likely they are to let you keep sending reasonable amounts of emails. And then I think the most important thing is to you need a good response rate on your campaigns, basically, because that shows Google. I think it's what seemed to be true, that if you get more engagement on your emails, your email account appears less spammy, and therefore you're less likely to get suppressed by spam filters or going to the promotion folder and stuff like that. So it's best if you have other uses for your email account as well. So like if you're ever like hiring someone, advertise the job using your main email address that you're doing your outreach for, because then people email that, and then the services see like incoming email to this account, and also you're responding to these job applicants and stuff, and so they see like back and forth and like evidence of a real conversation going on. And all of those kind of quality signals matter a lot. So like use it with your team, use it for hiring people. Like if you're inquiring about services of some other agency, like use that there so you can have a conversation back and forth. Anytime someone replies to one of your link building campaigns, make sure you reply to them again, and like just get as much sort of real activity and inbound emails on the account as you can. Obviously, real inbound emails like signing up to newsletters or something like that isn't really gonna cut it, I think, and won't have the effect that you want. And there's also services that you can use that I don't really like, actually, like where so you sign up to, you pay like $9 a month or something, and the service will put your email account into a pool of other email accounts, and their software, like you give their software permission to access the Google account, and they will all like email all of the accounts from all of the other accounts, and like it will reply to the emails and do what I've said you need to do. Like these services do that in the background, like using the API and stuff like that. But the reason I don't like that, it seemed to work for a while, and I think we did sort of experiment with them for a while. But to me, it reminds me too much of like a closed link network or something like that. So like some sort of PBN, or like a public version of a PBN, public blog network, I guess, that eventually gets found out by Google. And that always made me nervous with these types of services, because most of the people using these are either like they have the lead generation services or like link builders. And I think like it must create an obvious pattern of like this pool of kind of websites. And we have tons of Google accounts, and like obviously our ability to do outreach is like the core of our process. And it just seemed like way too risky to me to have all of our accounts in there and possibly get flagged when like Google rolls out some sort of update and adds all these accounts to like their spam list or whatever. So I don't like those. And I think, I don't remember the details because I have an operations manager now and he kind of handles these details, but I think we stopped our experiments with these there wasn't any big event like that, but there was something that made them less effective, or something that caused us concern with them eventually. So I think it's better to avoid those. I'll give one like powerful tip. If you do want a way to do this, is use micro workers campaigns. So microworkers.com, you go there, you set up a job and pay people like 2 cents per job, something like that. And the job is, hey, fill in this Google form. They fill in the form. You have it connected to your email account. When they fill in the form, there's a simple script you can set up in the back end so that your account emails them. And then the last bit of the micro workers job is to find that email in their inbox. If it's in the spam folder, mark it not spam, and like wherever they found it, like type a reply and write to you. and you can reply back to them and ask them to reply to you again or whatever. And that's a way that you can pad out the sort of activity stats of your email. And so there's a lot of, there's all the basics too, which are like Google email deliverability, and you'll find like set up your SPF information and your DMARC information and DKIM and all this other stuff. Like definitely do all of that. But those are like the basics. And what made the biggest difference for us was having this like real activity on the email account. And we have like lots of Google accounts, and every single one of them goes to the inbox pretty much every single time. Use GlockApps.com to test your deliverability. I won't explain how it works. It's just a simple tool. And if you go to their website, it explains how it works. And we do deliverability checks on all of our accounts once a week. And we inbox every time on every account for the last few years. So,
okay. What was that tool that you just mentioned?
GlockApps.com.
Okay. GlockApps. So people often ask like, hey, what was that tool? So GlockApps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Couple quick follow-ups. So do you use gmail.com accounts, or you're using like a specific domain associated with a campaign that you're just sending through Gmail, or how is that set up?
Good question. We'll use like a secondary version of your main domain. So if you're weoutreach.com, register weoutreach.net and use that as your outreach address. It protects your main domain in case you do have any issues with like getting marked as spam or something. You don't want to remove your ability to do email marketing or whatever with your main domain in the future. So secondary domain like that is the best way. And so Google Suite or Google Workplace, you can go there and register with your domain, and then it sets that Google like business service as your email settings for that domain. And that's the better way to do it than just using a Gmail account. It seems like because you're paying them, you get like better treatment with deliverability and also higher sending volumes. Even in their documentation, I think it actually says that you have like 2 or 3 times as much sending volume with a paid Google account as with a free Gmail account. That said, it's also good to have. So if you want to scale more, like your daily sending volume more, a good way to do that is to have multiple accounts, and you can use Gmail accounts for that sometimes. And I can't remember. There's kind of a somewhat dodgy website where you can only pay in Bitcoin, but it's called like ACCS accounts market, I guess. I don't know if that's .com, or it might even be .ru or something like that. I don't know. But you can buy aged Gmail accounts in there, basically. And I'm not sure if we still do this now, but a few years ago we were doing this and it was pretty good. So you could find Gmail accounts that were registered in 2014 or 2015. You can buy them for $10 or $20. And the theory is that they're older accounts. So they have so they've never been used, is my understanding. They were just like registered back then. But there's kind of a bit to it. Like some of them they're more valuable if they've went through different levels of verification. So if someone set up the account and verified an address and verified a phone number or something, that has more chance to like be a credible Gmail account and better deliverability. So like they're sold for more. But you got to load in Bitcoin and buy them with that. No dollars exchanging hands here. So, but that's another trick if you do want some cheaper accounts to kind of pad out your sending volume.
All right, man, people will sell anything. It's crazy how deep in the weeds you can get into this. Okay. Yeah. Other questions. So you got the 200 or 300, you found the contact information, you warmed up the email address, you're sending it a normal rate to not raise any red flags. What kind of response rate, what kind of conversion rate do you get back? And of course, there's different levels. Sometimes people reply back, tell you never to email them again. Some people say, hey, maybe in the future, whatever. So what kind of conversion rate are we looking at?
So I think a good response rate is like 15 to 20%. Some campaigns can also be like closer to 10 or less. If it's much less than 10, I'd really question if you're emailing, if you have the right type of messaging to the right prospects. So talking again about like the 3 pillars of an outreach campaign there, like if you have that we talked about, I don't know, like 30 minutes ago, if you have a mismatch between those, then you're sending the wrong type of message to the wrong set of prospects, and you might get a worse response rate. And so that's going to affect the whole campaign, obviously, and probably better to just ditch that one. In terms of conversion rates, like overall, like 1 to 2% would be really, really good. And many campaigns will also be less than that, like 0.5% conversion rate or something along those lines. And obviously, so there's a lot of that influences that overall conversion rate. Like all of the small things you can do along the way can all add up to like a better result there. So like if you're a little bit better at getting more of your emails delivered means like more emails read, more responses, more links. A better job finding the right prospects, same thing, or like the right contact information. A better job like writing a compelling message, same thing again, like you add to this number. And so I think about it as like a big funnel, and you start with like your raw prospect list at the top, and then you filter it and it gets smaller. Then you send your initial emails, and it gets smaller. And at every step, you're just like losing people along the way. And eventually what you're left with at the bottom are the links. So yeah, if you think about it in that way, you can think about systematically improving each of the steps along the way. And that's how you eke out better results at the end of the day.
Have you ever had a campaign that just really blew away the normal conversion rate where you got whatever, 10 to 15% links, not just response rate, but you got those links? Anything like that? Any cool story associated with it?
10 to 15%. I don't think we've ever had conversion rates quite that high. And sometimes, so it's actually, right now we probably have, 500 campaigns running, and we would have like that. We've had that every month for like the last 2 years, and I haven't been involved in like setting up any of them. So I actually don't know any of the recent like standout performers, but we do have. There are always outliers. So, but never to like a 10 or 15% conversion rate. But some will jump up to like 3% sometimes, or something like that. And yeah, obviously, when you see those, you can also like in theory, your campaigns, the conversion rate should go up over time, because at first you don't know what types of topics people are going to respond best to and stuff like that, and which segments of prospects are going to be the most fruitful. So you try like 10 different campaigns, and you see, oh, like the two about like this type of topic work the best. Like people seem to really like these like articles about taking photos in different types of situations or different types of landscapes. So let me try and do other campaigns around that type of thing. And like they really like this messaging, so I'll try and do more of that. And you can bump up your conversion rates with that, like as time goes along and as you test and try different things. But yeah, can't think of any specific examples right now. These days, I really just look at the links that come out at the end. We have a big database of links that is like updating live, like in real time all through the day. And I just go and check that and look at the links that are coming through at the end.
Nice. So let's say someone runs a campaign, and I know we need to talk about the messaging. We're coming up towards the end, so I'm going to try and wrap up stuff fairly quickly.
Sure.
Hopefully you can go a little long here.
Sure, yeah.
And let's say someone, they get started, they've gone through this excruciatingly painful process of like getting the list, distilling it, sending out a fuckload of emails. They got maybe a couple links, but they're below the 10% threshold. They know there's some issue. How do you start troubleshooting? Let's say it's one of your clients, right? So you've done everything, like the system works, but it's just underperforming. So where do you look first, and how do you kind of troubleshoot the process?
So usually, like the biggest thing to look for is a mismatch between the prospects you're emailing and the messaging you're using to email those. So what is really, really common is people don't manually check each of the prospects closely enough before sending the campaign. They just do like a big sort of bulk campaign, like build the raw prospect list and just email everyone on the raw prospect list. And you're going to have like 30% of the people in there that are just not relevant enough. So you'll have websites that are about like any sort of random topic you can think of. sports or health or mental wellness or whatever. And you're emailing them with a template that's like, hey, I see you like photography stuff. Like I got this nice article about photography or whatever. And that's obviously a mismatch. And that just, tanks all of the metrics of a campaign. That's the most obvious thing to look for. Or sometimes if you're building prospect lists with with any method actually, but one or two, if you're scraping Google, you can be scraping for some keywords that you think, oh, these keywords will produce relevant prospects. And if you have 100 keywords, maybe 70 of them are good, but the other 30 are just producing prospects that are just completely off. And so your whole sort of prospect list is contaminated by this type of stuff. So that happens. And same with if you're doing it from link profiles, pulling link profiles of competitors. You can have one bad competitor that has 1,000 links. And then if you only have that can also throw off your campaign a lot as well. That's the biggest thing. And then another thing is there's a ton of variables here. And many times it's not possible to come up with any sort of solution. A lot of times the best you can come up with is a theory. And sometimes that's not even a theory that will be too strongly held because the evidence for it isn't that strong. And a lot of times it's just, this just isn't working. We've checked the fit. We've checked that it matches all of our usual things. Our deliverability is good. Our messaging is good. And it's not working. And then it's better to just drop it. And the thing is you're limited by your email sending capacity. So if you think you only have 100 emails per day that you can send and you have let's say 3 campaigns running at once and one of them is performing terribly, it just makes so much sense just to stop that one. And then you give all of that available volume to the 2 campaigns that are working and then they produce more links. And so that's a big constraint that actually in a way helps and encourages you to only focus on your best campaigns.
Cool. So one quick tip, which I'm jumping ahead, but you probably can't do it at the agency so much, but if you do land a link and you get a guest post or however it works out, it's great to ask that person if they have any blogging friends that might be interested in working together and collaborating. You have a warm introduction and that's the highest conversion rate you can get versus these cold emails, which, even the best case scenario is 20% response rate and only a handful of those work out. So warm introductions are one of the best things you can do. Okay. So Jason, you're starting to email folks we need a message. So what do you put in that message? You mentioned some personalization, some other stuff. What other details can you provide in that template that you guys use?
I think these days it's the best to be pretty simple and straightforward. There was an era in 2016 to 18 when this outreach stuff, there weren't so many people doing it. And it made more sense to be a little bit more creative and flowery and funny in your messages because website owners were so unused to them. And you compliment their website and they're wow, they think I'm cool. But now actually a lot of times I think because website owners are so jaded and so spammed by this type of thing for years, they just see that as bullshit now. And actually it backfires. So I think the approach these days, it's much more effective to just be simple and straightforward and try and give the impression that you're emailing them individually. But the way to achieve that is through good choice of your prospects. So if you have a nicely segmented prospect list and okay, everyone on this list is a website about photography, then when you write your email, you can make it sound like you're talking directly to them because you're talking about just about photography or about their website about photography without mentioning anything too specific. But it is specific for them because it's so relevant. And so I think that's the trick to personalization these days is not to personalize for each individual website, but to personalize for a segment of websites. And then aside from that, don't fuck around in the email for want of a better term. Just get directly to it. Hey, I run this website. I'm interested in your website. I'll be right up front with you. I want a link. Can we make that happen? and like maybe suggest some content that you have, or have some sort of other ask, suggest a guest post or a link exchange or something like that. And I think the biggest thing these days is be simple and straightforward, and also realize that most link building these days is transactional in some way or another. So in 2017, you could send an email like, hey, I really liked your website. I have this nice piece of content. Will you link to me? That really doesn't work as well these days, just for like average kind of link building campaigns. And so it's much better to tell them, like, try and give them something first. So email them and say, hey, like, I'd really like a link. Like, let's make that clear. But before that, like, how about we do a link exchange and I'll build you the link first. So you don't do anything for me. I'm going to build you an awesome link. And like, if you like the link, then you give me a link back. If you don't, like, okay, that's cool. Like, I can build you another one or like whatever, but like make them happy first. And that's why link exchanges are really good. And also guest posting as well. If you're good at writing like really, really good guest posting, that's a whole topic in itself, but guest posting that will fit in with their website and everything like that, that can be really a compelling offer as well. So you're making a deal with this person and you need things of value that you can offer them from your side of the deal. Another one is just like cash, like paying them for a link. Problem with those is many of those websites very quickly just sell out completely and turn to like shitty sort of link farm type of websites. So you need to be a bit careful with that. But those are, I think, the three things that you should be open to offering while making a deal with a website. So yeah, keep it simple, be direct, treat it like a transaction, and also treat it like the start of building a relationship, and think about giving them value first. Because if you give them value first and you make the right first impression, they'll love you forever. And they understand that like, this is someone I can do business with. We've had a good transaction. We see eye to eye on these things. And then that's valuable for you in the future as well.
Cool. And much more likely to get that warm introduction to other people within their network also.
For sure.
Can you give us a price range for like how much people are asking, and maybe you could throw in like the domain rating and stuff like that to give us a gauge on how much it costs these days?
So like a typical website, let's say like Dior 20 to 40. There's a big range. Some will ask for $20. Those are the ones you should avoid. Some will ask for like $50 to a few $100, $200 or $300 for that sort of range, I would say. And the average is in and around the $100 mark, I would say. But for anyone who says $100, you should be able to negotiate it down pretty much, or you should be able to negotiate a good amount off the $100. And I would aim like for decent links that are like, let's say, less than Dior 50 or 60, I would aim for paying like $70 to $100, like max. And never take the first price that they give you as the price that you're going to pay. If someone says, oh, it'll be $150, then like offer them like $40 or something like that, usually wrapped in some sort of excuse. Oh, my boss, like I really need, links this month. My boss, he only gives me a budget of like $40 per link. Like, could you like help me out with this or something along those lines? And, or whatever sort of emotional strings you want to try and pull. But, the point is that, they're not selling like a commodity here, or like usually not big business that has kind of fixed prices for the links that they're selling. There's a lot of flexibility, and when they throw out a price, it's just like, this person seems interested. Seems like I could get $150 for myself here. Like, I'll chance my arm with that. And they throw that out. But if you say, nah, that's too much, I'm going to leave, very quickly you'll find it's like, oh, what about $100? They're like, oh no, it's still, what about $70? Like, come on, just let me do this. Because if they lose the deal, they get zero. And that's what they want to avoid. So yeah, I guess don't be a dick about it, but that's the sort of approach you need to take. And you can really control the costs of your link building with that sort of approach. And sometimes too, you find a really, really good link that, a high Dior site Dior is just one of the quality factors. Like, there's a lot of other things to consider, but you find a good site that's worth it. It's also worth spending a few $100s if you find that really, really good link as well. And that happens. And yeah, some sites also know their value and they're not willing to negotiate at all. But a kind of a good sign in a way. If they know their value and you also know their value, then maybe it's actually worth spending the $200 or $300 to get a nice link.
Right. Got it. Okay. And so many more questions, but I'll just ask a couple more. So I often have people say, hey, I got a company to build a few links and I think it helped a little bit. I got 4 links. One thing that you mentioned a couple times is a good foundation for a new site is like 100 links. And I know there's a shitload of people out there that are thinking, hey, I only do content. I saw these, YouTubers or whoever, they're like, I only publish content. I don't do any link building. 100 links sounds like a joke. That's impossible. How do you respond to that? Like, the thing is, like, I know it takes like a good effort, just like with content, people are like, I'll publish, 3 articles a day for a year, but they won't put that kind of effort into link building. And it takes the same kind of effort with link building where you have like hundreds of links. So like, what kind of effort should people be putting in? What kind of expectations? So let's say they get like 10 links. Will they even notice anything for any of their rankings or anything?
So if it's a totally new website, I think I would not expect to see much from 10 links. And pretty often the way I respond to people so you shouldn't think of link building in a way where I invest like 10 links and the output is like X rankings, or I invest X links, I get Y rankings. Like that doesn't really work for many, many reasons. And I think the way for people to understand this is people who are really good at producing content, they also don't think about their content in that way. Like I think most people don't think I build 5 articles or X articles and I get Y traffic. Most people think about it more like I have this list of like 100 articles that I could build. And like the way I'm going to do this is just like whatever I can manage, 5 to 10 articles a month. And I'll just slow and consistently keep doing that. And the best results that I see with link building are with like a similar approach as that. So pick a level that you can sustain and then just work on doing that every month. If it's 5 or 10 links a month, whether it's with an agency or like setting up your own processes to do this, just aim for something that you can sustain. And then it adds up over time. So if you need 100 links for a good foundation of your website, it doesn't mean you need them like next week. In a year from now or in 18 months from now, aim to have your initial foundation of 100 links, something like that, and try and approach it slow and steady. And I think it depends a little bit on the competitiveness of your niche too. That's something. But so that is to say, I think always like 50 to 100 links is a really solid foundation to get started, like almost regardless of your industry. Some industries you will need like many, many more links. If you want to go into the VPN industry or something like that, you'll talk about like you need 600 links, not 100 links or whatever, or many other competitive industries. And so that's a consideration as well. But I think the harsh reality of it is we're kind of gaming an algorithm here. That's what we're doing with SEO. The content is one important part of that, and the link building is another important part of that. And if you're trying to only do it with content and you're competing against someone, it's like having one arm tied behind your back and you're in a boxing match with someone who has both hands in front of them. And that's the sort of difficulty you're setting yourself up for if you don't dedicate some of your resources to link building. So even if it means that you have less resources to invest in your content so that you can put at least some into link building, that's going to get a better output because it's so important and so impactful. Honestly, the last thing I'll say about this, trying not to go too long with my answer, I struggle with that. But the last thing to say about this is when I think about SEO, like I have a simple SEO formula in my head. That's like the content quality multiplied by like your kind of topical relevance of the website as a whole multiplied by the links. And you get like your like ranking power as a result of those 3 things. And if you think about the first 2, the topical relevance and the content quality, let's just focus on content quality for a second. There's only so, or content optimization or quality. There's only so good you can make an individual article, like relative to the competitors. Like once you get it to be like really fucking good, it doesn't matter if you like add something else to it. Like you're only going to get like a tiny bit better or whatever in the eyes of the algorithm. But with links, there's no ceiling on the links. It's like if you build twice as many links as you have right now, your like ranking power at the end like goes up like exponentially. And I think people don't sit down and like logic this out for themselves about why link building is so insanely valuable. And like as a link building agency owner too, like, and you know yourself, everyone in the SEO industry knows like everyone just wants links and like more links and more better links and everything like that. And I think the reason for it is that everyone knows this kind of intuitively, that it's the one thing that you can do that has no ceiling. And if you're competing with people, like you get yourself to the right level with your content. And then after that, it's just like a war of links, basically. And whoever has more links and more authority is going to win. And yeah, so I have a link building agency. I have biases, but I think if you just look at it objectively, it's like, it's a critical part of success. And yeah, you really should focus on it.
You took my punchline. I was going to say that's the answer that a link building agency owner would give. You're like, you just need more links, everybody. You need more links. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay. So there's a bunch of stuff that we didn't even get into that we talked about in the pre-interview, but maybe we'll catch up later. We didn't even talk about the team of 20, managing them, your COO, blah, blah, blah. But for We Outreach, who is the right sort of client? Like, what kind of budget are they looking at? Let us know who the right person that you guys want to work with is.
So usually small businesses or website owners, I would put those in the same kind of category. Like businesses that have teams of like 10 or less, or like, let's say 20 or less, something like that. And also who have sort of a similar mindset as us when it comes to SEO and link building. So I think you can kind of gather the philosophy that I have from that spiel I just gave about like how Google is an algorithm. Like our whole game here is like gaming this algorithm, like links are one part of that. Having kind of a clear understanding of that and a clear understanding that you need to take sort of an assertive approach to doing that with link building. So not getting caught up in like, oh, well, Google says you shouldn't build links, so we shouldn't build links or things like that. People, or if you have that sort of approach to link building or SEO, like we're not a good fit, because we're like aggressively trying to build links that meet certain standards. And that's one thing that we didn't get to today, talking about like quality framework or something like that. But that's also like really, really important. And if you understand, the value of links and the value, I guess, of good links and also how that fits into your overall SEO strategy, that will usually make us a good fit. And also that you already have a good understanding of SEO as well. Like you have an SEO strategy in place, you have an ability to produce content. Ideally, you already have like some traction in Google. Your like website is decently well established, and you understand, okay, I can see where links plug into this whole strategy that will help me game the algorithm more effectively. Then we're generally going to be a good fit. Our budget is like, I think our lowest package starts around $2,000 a month. So it's not super cheap, but it's difficult to build high quality links, especially as an agency. So yeah, so around $2,000 and upwards is kind of where it starts.
Awesome. Okay, we'll link up for your website and people can learn more. Is there anywhere else that you want people to follow you or check you out?
I think the website is the best one, weoutreach.com. And I'd mention two specific pages too. One is weoutreach.com/link-quality, just because I mentioned our quality framework now, and it's a big part of what we do. So if anyone wants to learn more about that, they should go and check out that page specifically. And yeah, it's a long article and quite in depth. And I think your audience will probably find it useful.
Cool. We'll link up for both of those. Thanks a lot, Jason, and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Cool. Thank you, Doug.